Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday. Every session we meet to look at a specific topic related to PLUS, and today we are joined by the zoning module, and they're going to provide an overview, specifically looking at residents, so looking at how to submit applications and how to perform searches to see what's going on in your specific area. So we're going to get into that in just a minute, but before we dive into the content for today, we're going to do a quick technical orientation to make sure everyone can participate fully in today's session and send us their questions and comments as we go through the presentation. So please know that the webinar has started. Hopefully everyone can hear me just fine. If you're having any issues, please check your internet connection. You can always sign out and sign in again. Sometimes that refresh is all we need to get going, and that should fix any issues you're having. If you are having issues with audio, please feel free to put it in the chat box, because if everyone's having issues, that could mean it's a problem on our end instead. So please feel free to communicate that. You will note that you were muted when you came into the session. That's an automatic setting with GoToWebinar because there's so many people in the session today. It's going to be much more effective for us to communicate through the questions and comments. So this is where you're going to be able to find that. If you are joining from a computer, you will see the GoToWebinar control panel, and near the bottom of that panel is where you will see a question section. You can type in those questions and comments and send them our way. If you are joining from a mobile device, you're using the GoToWebinar app, and there is an icon that looks like a question mark. You will press this and be able to send questions and comments. One thing to note here is that your questions and comments are private, meaning only myself and the other staff and presenters in the room are able to see them. This enables you to ask us something that might be very specific, that relates just to you, that might not be the best fit to discuss in this session. But we do get a record of all the questions that are submitted to us through the comments, along with your email address and your name. So if we don't have an opportunity to address your question in the session today, we will be able to follow up with you after the session. Feel free to send us questions and comments throughout the session. We also have reserved some time at the end where you can ask any additional questions that were not addressed during the presentation. So if you could, for me right now, find that question box and just send me a note, say good morning or hello or whatever. I just want to be sure that everyone has found that and they are able to communicate with us throughout the session today. Thank you so much. I see those coming in. I really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So today we are so grateful to the zoning module for taking time out of their schedule to be here and talk to us about how we can use PLUS specifically from a residential perspective and information you might be interested in finding. So we're joined today by Maura Brooks, and she is from the Department of Planning and Development, and she is going to take us through the material today. So Maura, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and give you the controls, and hopefully you got that pop up.
Yes, I did.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you find this informative. This is our agenda for today. We're going to cover what PLUS is exactly, and then which zoning records are available in PLUS. And then we're going to have some demonstrations. I'm going to show how to create a record in PLUS, how to search for records in PLUS, and how to access zoning reports within the citizen-facing side of PLUS. And then we'll have time at the end for questions. So first of all, I wanted to go over what PLUS is. Everybody I think starts at a different place. Some are very familiar with PLUS, others have just heard of the name. So PLUS is the county's implementation of Excella software to cover the land development tracking process. Excella software is used worldwide. It's one of the leading software packages to track land development and allow citizens to submit applications and staff to process those applications. So there's two sides of PLUS. There's the citizen side and the staff side. Today we're going to be covering the citizen side. This is also called Accela Citizen Access, sometimes called ACA for short. You'll hear all those names. This is where you as a citizen can create and submit applications. You can pay any fees due on those applications. You can track the status as those applications process through their life cycle. And you can search for applications based on various criteria. We're not going to cover the staff side today, but I wanted to make you aware of what's available. That's called Accela Automation, short sometimes as AA. You might hear the back end if you're ever talking to staff. This is where they track your application through various milestones, and they can record key attributes during that time. And they have, Accela has a really powerful function to build a view of an application's touch points across agencies. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the scope of this project is really quite large. It began around November of 2019, so we're approaching 3 years ago. For zoning in particular, we had a major release the end of June of last year, 2021. This coincided with the implementation of ZMOD, the zoning ordinance modernization effort. That zoning ordinance modification went into effect on July 1st. So we made the decision within the zoning module to also update our software system to coincide with that July 1st date. So that was sometimes known as release 2, but there are 4 major releases, and the 4th major release and the final one, 4 plus, which is not to say there won't be ongoing maintenance of the system, but this is the last major release coming up next month. Late October is when the release will move to production. It'll be effective November 1st. There are 8 county agencies involved in this plus effort. Everyone from the health department, fire marshal's office, to land development services, planning and development. The Department of Information Technology is backing up all of these agencies in this development effort. When all is said and done, next month there'll be over 190 records that are implemented, that have been developed and implemented, that customers can apply for. And over 20 legacy systems will be consolidated into one unified software system. So all of the various legacy systems that our Department of Information Technology has developed over, decades, which were sometimes quite custom, and they did everything that one agency might want it to do, but were getting antiquated and didn't talk to each other. Those will all be consolidated into this one unified software system that has a view from upfront land development with the planning stages to the zoning stages on through to site work and building. So this is what is currently available in Plus Production, and we'll see this during the demonstration. For zoning, we have 2 divisions, an administrative division and an evaluation division. And this is a view of all the different types of applications you could apply for right now in production, in Plus Production. Many residents from the administrative types of applications apply for home-based businesses, accessory living units. From the zoning evaluation division column, we typically only see like special permits or variances from the public. Those are for, say, a home-based business that doesn't meet the administrative criteria, something along those lines. But typically, the residents will apply for administrative permits more than ZED permits. So this is the current view if we go into Plus Production today. After the release 4 implementation in late October, we are going to have this view in production for zoning. And you can see there's a new category for zoning appeals. And under ZAD, there's going to be many new records available for the public to apply for. Currently, these would probably still be applied for with paper, but once this goes live, you can apply for everything from agritourism, community gardens, down to food truck related applications and short-term lodging, sign permits, and the like. So we're going to start the demonstration. First, I'm going to show how to create a record. So let me switch over to the right screen. So what I'm showing here is our pre-production environment. This is very similar to the view you would see if you access Plus production, the citizen-facing side, the ACA, Acela Citizen Access. There's a login screen, and then you have tabs along the top with the various modules that currently have applications available for you to apply for in production. You can see there are some building applications out there now, but they have very few. Release 4 is going to bring many, many more applications under those two categories in particular. So I am not logged in yet. You will need to create a Plus account if you want to apply for an application. There is an exception under the enforcement category. I think there's some complaints that can be filed anonymously, but otherwise the vast majority of the records in Plus, probably 99%, you need an account. Otherwise, there really, I can't say there's an advantage to having an account. Like if you're just a member of the public that wants to search for applications that have been filed, you don't need to create an account for that. So I'm not going to go over how to register for an account. This is the link you would use in the upper right-hand corner where it says register for an account. Rachel has some nice training videos available, and I think there's going to be some of those links available in the information you get sent afterwards if you want to see a walkthrough on how to register. So I've previously registered. I'm going to log in with my credentials. The first page you see is a dashboard. If you have any work in progress or anything that's awaiting payment, it'll show saved in cart here. I am going to click on zoning, the zoning tab along the top here. And you can see that there's a link for create an application and search for applications. We'll talk about search applications later. Create an application is what we want to do now. And I'm going to use a home-based business record today. It's just one of the easier, more straightforward ones to apply for. But everybody, regardless of the module that you go to, needs to accept this disclaimer. And then click continue. You can expand the zoning administration caret to find these application types. And Zed has these. This is what I showed you earlier, what's currently available. And there will be much more after the end of October. So we'll click home-based business, continue application. You first have qualifying questions. I'm going to answer no initially to this and yes to the certification. You can click on this hyperlink. This link, blue text, leads you to a hyperlink that describes everything about the home-based business process. Then I'm going to click continue application. And I should see an error message. It says an error has occurred. A home-based business permit can only be issued to a resident of the property, which is pretty straightforward. I'm going to change my answer to yes. And this time I should be able to go through with no issue. I just wanted to show you that as an example of the help text that has been built in to the application process through all the various records. We've tried to make it very user-friendly. So no, my residence is not an apartment. I'm going to enter government center. Obviously, there wouldn't be a home-based business at the government center, but it's a good neutral kind of location to use for this webinar. The system pulls in the associated parcel with that address and the associated owner. I'm just going to click select and they will populate. If you only had the parcel, you could enter that in here and click search. And you would be able to leave the Well, that doesn't apply for home-based business. There's going to be an address. But for some of the zoning evaluation applications, there might only be a parcel and no address. And in that case, as long as you enter the parcel, you would be able to proceed. Click Continue Application. So under Applicant, I'm going to say Select from Account and pick myself. And that's just a best practice to use the Select from Account information. That's how this application you file is going to be linked to your Plus account. Continue application. This, I wanted to mention these breadcrumbs along the top. This tells you where you are in the application process. We've already completed location and people. Now it's the application specific detail. This is going to be very unique for each of the different applications you fill out. Like if you're filing out a administrative permit for a special event, it might ask you how many people are you expecting at this event, and of course dates, things like that. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly and just enter some test information. And some of these might change based on your reply. It might open another question to clarify something. And there will be help text in case you missed a question or did not answer something completely. So the next section is attachments. Zoning module, we've done a really good job, I think, with putting help text in of what is required. In our case for home-based business, the floor plan is always required. Interior and exterior photos are required. So I'm going to add 3 test documents. And then I'm going to select which document type each of those documents is. And obviously for photos, you wouldn't upload a doc, or you might, but other document types are uploadable. And if you upload a really large file, it might say pending for a while it uploads. So just be sure that it resolves to a screen that looks like this before clicking continue application. So if you missed any of those documents, you'll get an error message that says, please upload whichever document it is that you missed. In our case, we're brought to a review screen. If anything didn't look right, you can always click edit for that section and it'll bring you back to that section in particular. I'm going to say basement plus main level and continue. And it'll bring you back to the review screen. You can see if everything else looks good. And then there's a certification that's specific for each individual record that you can check the box for and continue application. So at this point, there's a $100 fee associated with the home-based business application. So when brought to the fee page, I'm going to do this checkout process. I'm going to pay with credit card just because it's easier in the test environment to do so. You can also pay with e-check. There is no charge for e-check. There is like a 2.35% convenience fee for credit card. These pages that I'm showing right now are not, it's a third-party vendor that processes the payment. So this is an interface. This is not the county's pages right now. And this is test information that I'm entering. And review, and the customer would submit their payment. This can take some time for the payment vendor to process I wanted to mention that when the applicant is filing an application that does not require payment, that just gets skipped entirely. The page that I just went through, the interface with our third-party payment vendor, and the application, after you do the review and the certification check, goes directly to this page, the confirmation page. The confirmation page displays your receipt and your record number. You'll also get 2 emails, one from the payment vendor with the receipt and one from the county from Plus that has your record number. So this is what an application looks like within Plus, within the citizen-facing side of Plus. It has your information at the top. It has a GIS map of the location that the application was for. You can see I am logged in still. At the top of the page, you can see I'm logged in. And this is my application I just filed. Therefore, I'm going to be able to see information that members of the general public cannot see, such as my applicant information, the owner. If I go over to this payments tab along the top and click on fees, I can see the fee that was paid. And this is a hyperlink to the receipt, this view details. If I click under record info, I can go to see the most recent processing status. This will tell me the life cycle that my home-based business application needs to travel through on the staff-facing side of Plus. Staff will do a zoning review after its sufficiency work is done at application submittal. Then there's a zoning review. If it's relevant, there'll be a health department review, depending on where the address is located, and then some closeout activities. So this has no related records. We'll talk about this tab later. This is a very powerful component of Excella. Attachments is where I can see the files that I uploaded. And I have an add button if I wanted to add additional files at this point. Now I'm going to log out. And I did not write down what that home-based business number was, but I know they're about, I think it's this 162. Okay, so I'm logged out. I'm just a member of the public right now wanting to look up information about this home-based business record. You can see, if I go under more details now, there's no information about the applicant or owner. That's only available if you're logged in. If I go to the payments page, there's no receipt available anymore. And if I go to attachment, there's no add button. So these files, floor plan and photos, they're available to view by the public. There are very few document types that are not available to be viewed by members of the public. Most of them for zoning records are exposed to the public, but the functionality is not there for me to add additional attachments to this record. So that's how to create a record. The next part of this webinar is how to search for records in Plus. And I'm going to demonstrate this as well. There's 2 different major ways to search for records in Plus. One is globally, and the other is a module level search. So like within the zoning module itself. I'm going to go over to production. I was in a pre-production environment earlier for that last demonstration. But now what you're seeing here is our production Excella Citizen Access ACA view. So I'm not logged in right now. You don't need to be logged in to do any of the search functions. The box right up here in the upper right-hand corner, you probably saw me use it to look up the home-based business application just a moment ago. That's a global search. And this is a pretty powerful way just to search any search term across the entire Excella database, the entire PLUS system. So if I want to search Lorton Library, I can just type that in, hit enter, and see what gets returned. Looks like we have 4 records in production right now that meet the search term Lorton Library. These are all actually the FIRE module records. I can click in them to get more information, but at a glance I can see what the latest, what the status is and the record information. This is very flexible. You can put a parcel in here, you can put names. If I wanted to do a search term like equine, this goes, there's only one record that meets this search term, so we go straight to that record. Last time we had, when I put Lorton Library, it returned 4 records and I had to pick one. If there's only one record that meets your search term, it goes straight to it. So this is also a FIRE record based on it, starting with the F. That was their naming convention that they used. And you know, it's a similar structure. We go straight to the map for the address and there's details. You can go to record info and any related attachments would be there. So that's the global search. It's just kind of a nice way to, especially if you already know your record number and want to go straight to it, you can put it right into this global search box. So if you wanted to do just some research kind of searching, instead you could pull up PLUS, go to the module that you're interested in. In our case, we're going to go to the zoning tab and scroll down. You can see now the search applications link is still available here. There's no longer a create applications link. That's only available if you're logged in. So if I scroll down, we'll see all these search terms that are available. You can put an address in. You don't have to put all the values. You could just put a street name. Parcel ID, that's the first search that I'm going to show you all using this page. Record types, these are all the zoning record types. Yes, you can only select one at a time. That was a question that had come in. Can I select more than one? And unfortunately, you can't. This is not the most flexible search page. Excella, I think that's not one of its advantages, is having a flexible search UI. It has so many other powerful features, but the search screen, until you really get to know how to work with it, it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. Supervisor district, for example, we have some help text that tells you have to type in the supervisor district name and what they are. So you would just type that in if you wanted to restrict your search to a certain supervisor district. So I'm going to show this parcel ID number search first. We frequently get the question, how do I search for development like in a certain neighborhood? So if you have your tax map number and subdivision number, you can enter those here. I'm going to enter 0573 tax map 07 subdivision, which is the Fairfax Villa neighborhood. I don't have any other search criteria selected. The start dates, I'm going to remove those. You can see they default to a 100-year span. That's something that we were required to do by our Department of Information Technology. I think it helps their searches run faster. So I'm going to only have this parcel ID number and click search. And I get 38 record results returned. And you can see there's some home-based businesses, there's a special permit. But I want to point out at the top of this search page, there's a box that says search all records. If you click that, it will apply your search criteria across the entire database of records, not just zoning. So we have 38 now. I'm going to click search for the same parcel. And this time we have 100 plus records. Many of these are household appliance, which I think is one of the building module records that is in production right now. So let me clear that and go back to just zoning records.
Maura, I do have one quick question. The question was, If you remove the dates, then what is the date range that you use? So when you deleted that 100-year
Mhm.
span, what is the system
So
searching?
that means that there's no date restriction at all applied.
Okay.
It doesn't consider date when pulling back data. I'm clicking on this home-based business record. I wanted to show one item with this. This is a production record. One of the questions we had in advance was how to find permits for home-based businesses and non-reps. So if you go to a home-based business record and go to the record info attachment section, you can see a final permit type. And if you click on that document, it downloads. Might behave a little differently based on your browser, but it basically downloads and then you're able to view the document. Non-reps are not in production yet in Plus. They will be with release 4. So they would operate the same way. You would find the non-rep and then find the final document type. Let's see. I wanted to show
I
the
do have one other question related to searching. Someone asked, can you do a search that includes street address, including an apartment or suite number?
You should be able to. I don't see why you couldn't. If it doesn't come back, so if unit number, if you put in an apartment number here and it doesn't come back, then I would just leave it out and then see what gets returned from just putting the street name in. I don't have any examples prepared to go through for that. Otherwise, I'd give it a try. But so let me go to search for special exception record types. I removed the parcel that we were searching on based on the neighborhood earlier. So parcels wide open now, dates are open. The only criteria I have in here is special exception, and I'm going to click search. You can see the most recent special exceptions that have been filed. We had 3 that were filed yesterday. This one is what I'm going to pull up. It starts with SEA, Special Exception Amendment. And this was filed by Novec yesterday. So just like you've seen with other records, the map sometimes takes a little while to resolve, but it will come up here and zoom into the location. And the details are below. But what's interesting for this one, if we go to related records, this will show the relationship back to the original special exception that was filed in 1989. And the current record that you are displaying is displayed in italics in the relationship tree, but you can click on this top record and go straight to it within Excella. And it'll show you the details from this original special exception. So once all the modules have migrated their data from all these various legacy systems into Plus, this related records functionality is going to be really powerful because you'll be able to track an application from an upfront rezoning down through the site plan and building plans. They should all be linked together and you can really easily go back and forth between the records. So our last topic is reports, and I'm going to go straight into it from this Novec special exception record because I wanted to show, let's see, where are the reports? Parcel, okay, over here. So I'm in this record. Let me go back to the main record details view because I think this is a little more familiar for a lot of people, the main view of the record. Although you can access this parcel information from any of the subsets, like we were just within related records and parcel information was available there. You can access these 3 report types directly from a record. So if I click on environmental report, it is going to take that parcel and address information and pull up the environmental report directly for that location. You can do the same with general parcel report and tax assessment report. So you don't have to take the parcel or the address and go into those systems and pull up those reports separately. you can actually do it straight from a record. So that's one of two types of reports that I wanted to talk about. The first, so that's the first, it's record parcel specific reports. If you are logging into Plus and you want to just use the zoning reports that we've prepared, you would go click on, so you can see up here, there's nothing that says reports. It's not available on the home tab. But if you click on the zoning tab, and I'm not logged in, this is available to anyone. You don't need an account to do this. There's now a reports link in the upper right-hand corner. If I hover on that, if I click on that, it'll bring up a list of reports. You can see that it just disappeared. That's because I didn't move my cursor down into the box. If you move your cursor down into the box, this list of reports will persist. We have ALU applications accepted weekly. This contains both administrative ALU applications as well as ALUs applied for by special permit. We have applications accepted weekly and received weekly. These currently in process reports, they were available in LDSNet prior to this if you were used to using that system. And then the zoning application board package, and we have a PC package as well. So I just clicked on the board package. It brings up a list of hearing dates, Board of Supervisors hearing dates. The next date coming up is October 11th. So if I click on that date and expand this, it will show you the applications, the land use applications that are scheduled currently for that hearing date. There are 5 applications here. As the staff reports become available, they're linked right here and the various other documents. And you would just click on that document that you want to see. It can be slow to come up, especially if some of these documents are large. Some of the staff reports are large. But just give it time, it'll come up, and then you're able to view the document. And what other reports? So the PC package, we have a report available just like the zoning, just like the BOS one for the Planning Commission. Let me close this report. And say I wanted to see applications received weekly, I would click on that report, click the week range that I'm interested in. And that'll be a case of zoning applications received. And these are actually specific for the zoning evaluation division applications, this report. Click on links that take you directly to the record in Plus. So that is pretty much what I wanted to show.
And if you yeah, Maura, I was just gonna say we have gotten a couple questions in. Oh, but I'm sorry, okay, you're at the question slide now. So in some of these you may want to open Plus again, some of them you may not need to, but I'll go ahead and start running through these questions that we've received. So one good question is, when applying for a simple deck or porch permit, will we submit one application in your building and the system does the zoning part, or do customers need to apply for the building permit and the zoning permit separately?
You would need to apply for them separately, as far as I know.
Okay, perfect. And we can follow up and get more detailed information as needed for some of these questions if we can't answer it specifically. So another question is, are you able to view child care permits in Plus?
Child care permits. I think those are home-based, sometimes home-based businesses. I don't know, Daniel, are you?
You can view special permits for home child cares that were approved or in process, or child care centers for their zoning approval, but their licenses are regulated by the state, so you'd want to look at the state database for those. But for the zoning approvals, for your home child cares and your child care centers, you could find the zoning approvals in Plus.
Yeah, and I know there's home-based businesses under the administrative ones too. So the permits would be available there as well.
Okay, excellent. But it's basically the difference between the permit to the zoning approval versus their actual like certification from the state or the county.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay, excellent. There's another question. Will we be able to view short-term lodging permits in Plus?
Yes, that is a record that's going live with release 4. And you would be able to view those permits just like the home-based business one that I showed.
So that would be under the attachments in the record summary.
Correct.
Excellent. So this is a question that I think is a really thoughtful question that a comment from a participant in the webinar saying that, you know, as you're doing some of the searches, it does seem to require that the customer or the person performing the search has a little bit of knowledge about the address. So, you know, perhaps they know the parcel number or they know the specific address or the name of the project. If someone just happened to be driving down the street and saw some type of development happening on the side of the road in like a corner of their neighborhood, what's the best way for them to get some of that information to be able to perform those searches effectively?
I would suggest in production going to the zoning view, putting the street name in and seeing what comes back. Those might be, you might want to look for a rezoning or a special exception, probably special exception. There's also rezoning plan amendments and applications. You can search for that record type. There is a feature that is being developed you would subscribe to an email from the county and it would tell you, you'd get an automated email whenever there is development in an area you're interested in. So you would put in the parameters of, you know, a mile around a certain point and you would get an email whenever there's a zoning application or a different type of application. It's not specific for zoning, it's going to be any Plus application. That hasn't been developed. I think they're targeting the summer, like spring, summer of 2023 to come up with that. And you would subscribe to that from the, there's a link that has a whole subscription service for county emails. I think when Rachel sends the links out at the end of this, it contains a link because you can actually get Plus updates via that notification system. So that'll be one improvement in the future, but it's not the easiest thing to do through the Plus interface. You know, there could be some GIS advancements in the future. Right now, this has been a build out of the initial system of Plus. And then I think that's going to be the sort of thing that is followed on later based on suggestions such as this one.
Okay, perfect. There is another specific question. What is the best way to see assisted living facilities coming to the area or modifications to existing developments that want to rezone for assisted living type facilities?
Daniel, do you know how to find assisted living? That would be like the type.
Yeah, probably through the custom fields, like including that use for the additional search criteria. They come in a lot of different ways. They could come in through a rezoning or through a special exception. So
Proposed land use.
Yeah, if you search by land use for use some date fields to get the most recent, but yeah, it would be not assisted living. I think we call them.
Is it adult daycare center?
No, it's we changed it with ZMod. It's no longer called assisted living. We have combined something.
Congregate living, continuing care.
There's independent living should be on there.
There's a suggestion for group
Yeah.
care.
So you have independent living facility, which doesn't have assistance. I'm not sure what they changed assistant living. Group care, I think, is smaller, like the more residential facilities.
Uh-huh.
I can't recall what the name of, but
Well, we can look into what the land use, and this is land use.
yeah,
Would that be the right field? So
yeah.
when you, let me show this to everyone. On this general search page, if you click on the record type, it's going to allow you to search for fields that are specific to rezoning. So when I clicked rezoning here, that just gave us these 4 extra fields under additional search criteria. So then I can put in proposed land use independent living facility. We'll see what that brings back. And we'll have to, so there's nothing under independent living facility. We'll have to look into what the right use would be.
Okay, perfect. So then there's just some other questions because Maura, I know earlier in your presentation you did say there's not a way to select multiple types for the record type. So someone's just asking, since we can't select multiple record types, it's cumbersome because you can get back so many different records that really may not be relevant to you. So is there a suggestion for if you are interested in multiple record types, but just specific ones, and you're trying to perform a search, maybe other filters you could use instead to try to narrow that down?
I mean, there really isn't. This is what you see here is what's available. You could, if you wanted to try and use a record status, say you're not at all interested in approved older cases, you could say those that are in review, perhaps. That might narrow it down a little bit, but there's really, it's a little bit of trial and error. You can put in just the last year of dates, and these do represent the date of the application. That was one of the questions that came in advance. What do these dates mean? They are the date that the application was filed. We'll definitely work on updating some help text in the future.
Okay, perfect. And Daniel and Maura, I could be wrong about this, but I believe in release 4 in ACA, customers will have the ability to export their search results to an Excel, and that would enable them to filter additionally. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with that.
That does sound correct. Let me pull up some results. Let's just do all rezonings. You'll see right now there's no export button, and that will be remedied in release 4. Not sure where the button will be. I think it'll be at the top somewhere.
Yes, so that should be another way to help, that if you can't narrow down the initial record type result, you could export the results and then filter from there to sort of assist you. But of course, I think, as you've been saying, Maura, there are just some limitations to the types of searches that we're able to do, but there will be future enhancements and other things that come along down the road.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent summary. Excella has a lot of really great features. The search screen is not their high point, but I think the GIS department, for example, in the county has done some amazing interfaces. And I think in the future, you'll probably see some more search capabilities that are not, that don't have an interface like this. It would probably be more map based, but that's down the road.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again so much for your time. I know we went a little bit over our scheduled time already. If we did not answer your question specifically, or if we didn't answer your question at all, I'm going to be sending this Excel sheet to Maura and Daniel after this with all of the questions. And if there's any further detailed information, we'll be sure to include that in the email that's going to go out to everyone by the end of the day today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the slides back so that I can just run through what's going to happen next. So at the end of the day, you'll receive an email from me with links and the slides attached from Maura's presentation today. In some of the links that you'll see in there, you'll see a link to the Plus site specifically. So if you haven't gotten started with this, you could go in and create an account. You could try performing some searches, so you'll have direct access to that. You'll also get a link to our support site where we have a lot of additional resources, FAQs, links to some of our videos. In addition, we will send you some direct links to some of those useful resources like our YouTube channel where we have some really targeted videos that help explain specific processes in Plus, such as paying fees or submitting applications. We'll also have a link to all of the recorded webinar sessions. We do record all of these presentations, and whether or not you registered initially, everybody has access to these recordings, so you're also welcome to share these as needed as people might find them useful. And we will give you some links to upcoming webinars so you can register if there's anything that is of interest to you coming up soon. So our next session is going to be with environmental health, and they're going to be talking about linking licensed professionals to your Plus account. And then we're also going to have a session in October with the Department of Code Compliance, and they're going to be talking about submitting a complaint through the enforcement module in Plus. So thank you all so much for your participation today and all your amazing questions. And we're going to be sure that we close the loop if there's anything we didn't answer specifically. As you close the webinar, you will see a survey pop up. It's a couple quick questions, but there is an opportunity there as well to submit any free-form questions that you may have or any feedback you have for us. We do take a very close look at that, and we get a lot of suggestions for future topics for webinars from those comments. So please do feel free to take advantage of that. Maura and Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today, taking the time to present this information. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and we look forward to seeing you in a future session.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, everyone.